we're a reflection of our community, and our community is a reflection of us. So if you do good things in your community is going to go and do good things as well.
I believe in Calgary.
I believe in Calgary.
I believe in Calgary.
I believe in Calgary.
This is the We Believe in Calgary podcast.
We're here to give voice to the Zane Novak 2021 Mayoral Campaign by speaking to community leaders, local entrepreneurs, and civic visionaries about the issues and innovative ideas that affect Calgarians.
Join us every second Wednesday leading up to the municipal election on October 18th.
Simon Kallal, thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So we always start the podcast with a very simple question. What is your Calgary story?
Awesome. Yeah, my Calgary story is I was in university out east. I went to the University of New Brunswick and graduated with a degree in philosophy. Out there, I was a swimmer and part of varsity athletics, and they had a high value on community. So I did a lot of things with Heads Up with the Reds, Reading with the Reds, Run for the Cure, dragon boating, in my spare time when I wasn't swimming, working, or at school. So moved out to Calgary in 2008 with the aspirations of becoming a police officer. That really didn't suit who I am. So during the application process, I kind of moved into construction. I joined a home building company here in the city. And over the next 7 years, I moved up into becoming the general manager of the company. And it was specialized in financially distressed projects. And so here I am now. That company ran into issues in 2013. I started my own construction company and then moved into also owning a liquor store later on. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a great place to get started. So today we are talking about small business in Calgary, issues and potential solutions, and how that is being framed within the Zane Novak municipal campaign. So, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your experience as a small business owner, and you can talk about the construction company first, or your experience owning a liquor store as well, and kind of what that journey's looked like for you, and maybe some of the challenges you've experienced.
Perfect. Yeah. So my construction company is a smaller company. It started in 2013. We usually range from about 4 to 10 people. And it has been a great experience doing that here in the city of Calgary. It's a very busy city. It's a growing city. So that was going very well, to the point where I decided I was going to open a liquor store. This I thought would be a great idea. It's a government regulated business. I thought, like the profit margins should be, a minimum of kind of 10%, which you would expect out of any business of volume. And then that kind of did not turn out to be the case.
Okay. Why is that?
So in Alberta, alcohol is privatized, sort of. Any payment you make will go directly to the government, and then the government disperses the funds for alcohol. But in the way in which it is set up, it is biased towards big companies. So companies like Costco, Superstore, co-ops, and these huge chains of liquor stores. So they use these as a way to bring people into their stores to buy other products, and they'll sell at a 0% margin, which leaves no room for the privatized guys.
Right.
And the ambition behind allowing privatized alcohol sales was to benefit Albertans, which it is not. It's actually shipping the money out of province.
Okay, to these large multinational corporations.
Yeah, exactly. So I was speaking with a guy last week, and he sets up these purchases for the larger multinationals. And what happens is the companies will buy the alcohol here in Alberta, and then they'll open up a numbered company or a shelf company out of province, and then Bacardi or Captain's Morgan's or these other huge liquor suppliers will pay them money back in those companies out of province. So the profit that they see isn't from in-province sales. It's like the money doesn't even enter Alberta. The money is automatically shipped out of Alberta as soon as these big companies are purchasing alcohol.
So obviously, this is a tactic that, or a tool that a smaller liquor store owner just wouldn't have at their disposal.
Yeah, like there's no way you're going to go out and spend, $2 million on Bacardi rum because you just don't have the capacity to store and sell that amount of alcohol. So the government, intentionally or unintentionally, depends on how the policy came about, has made it so they've essentially shipped the money out from alcohol. So like if it was a provincially owned liquor store, like a lot of other Canadian provinces, that money stays in the tax base at least, right? Like it's not being shipped out of province.
So I had a quick question. How could Alberta improve it for small businesses then?
I think they have 100% control of it. Like I said, when you purchase alcohol, you pay the government and then they do the disbursements of funds to the vendors. So within that framework, it's such a heavily regulated industry. You could easily say that it has to be, provincially owned. Like the owners have to be from within the province, right? Like instead of allowing these multinationals,
right?
And it's a controlled substance. So, this is kind of more of a socialist approach to it. But I think at the same point in time, the governments are in place to help their citizens, right? Like it's not something that is going to hinder anybody within the country, but it hinders these multinationals that are shipping money out of province. Yeah, out of province, out of country, wherever these shelf companies are taking the payments from.
So you've recently moved away from the liquor store then, and you are focusing more on the construction business?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And largely you would say it's because of these reasons. There just wasn't a lot of room for margin there, and just a challenging industry.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you've got to be pumping out a ton of alcohol if you want to make a living off of 1 or 2% margins, or even if you could get it up to 5%. But
that sounds so low. That's
and everybody purchases at the same price because we're buying from the government. So right. like Costco will consistently sell alcohol at as low as I'm purchasing it or lower because they'll buy it on sale from the government. It's called an LTO, limited time offer, and then they will sell it off at that rate for the rest of the year. So I can't purchase all my alcohol for the year at that rate, and they'll be selling it for less than I can purchase it for.
Wow.
So your basic sell is convenience at the end of the day. It's just being
close
enough to everyone.
Yeah, I had a liquor store in Balzac. It was called MK Country Liquor.
Right, yeah.
And it's still there. Loewen Lookman is now owning and running it, but it was catching all the commuting traffic between the two cities because it was located right by part of a gas station there.
So we're recording this podcast kind of in the midst of another lockdown in Alberta, and one of the questions we wanted to ask you about is how COVID has affected your businesses, and maybe we can start with the liquor store. Did you, because you were still operating that business during, I'm guessing last year during the first wave of COVID restrictions, so how did you find operating that business during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, it became very hard because traffic wasn't commuting. I mean, they shut everything down. Just downtown Calgary became a ghost town. Anybody coming and commuting, that kind of got shut down as well. So that really, really limited even the business that we were running. But before that, it was extremely hard as well. But the original reason I bring that up is because this is kind of a policy issue. So I think that our governments, federal, municipal, provincial, should be targeting issues like that to help Canadians and business owners be able to thrive in whatever industry it is.
Right.
And I think that feeds into the COVID thing as well. Like these big businesses like Amazon, Costco, Superstore. I don't want to keep harping on them, but they're allowed to be open in a very high touch situation with more people than they should have in there. And you can walk into Costco and see the lineups. You can see how close people are to each other. They're masked up, but then you go into a restaurant where it's not high touch. You've got food that's brought to you, but you're sitting in an isolated area. You're not moving about. And all these areas are consistently targeted by the COVID restrictions. And I think that's a completely unfair.
On the surface, it seems disproportionate, affecting small businesses rather than these big box stores, which I think at first, I don't even know if any of these big box stores even shut down for any period of time. I think they've been open since all this stuff happened, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I don't really remember a period when it was, a long period when these guys were shut down either. So
The point of bringing up the liquor store mostly is to illustrate the issues surrounding policy, right? Like, I think that the policies that our governments put into place, they should be put into place with the best intentions for the people they affect. And then beyond that, they should be monitored afterwards so that, if you've done something like privatize alcohol in Alberta and you think, yo, this is going to be great for all the Albertans who can open up a liquor store and benefit.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have these multinationals that come in and put it down to a 0% margin because they're taking payments in a company elsewhere's. That our governments should be aware of this and should be able to alter the policy so that it goes back to affecting us appropriately.
Right, and in general, it's my view at least that there hasn't been a lot of nuance in these measures, and it's been very black and white. So maybe that's a good example of that, where there needs to be a bit of ability to look back at how these policies are affecting citizens and businesses and adjust accordingly. So. Yeah, I guess circling back to your construction business, I know liquor has done well through the pandemic, but how have you found getting business with construction throughout all this?
Yeah, construction for me has been great. I'm a small company. We pride ourselves on good work in a timely fashion and being honest with our clients. So, I mean, the original shutdown kind of hurt because everybody was just scared. But then, I mean, we were only slow for maybe a month, and then since then we're back to what you would think Alberta is, like just pure busy, lots of work, and just focusing on running a good business and growing it as well. So
great, and feel free to plug your business. Just throw the name.
Yeah, Keon Construction. There we go. So, and I value small business a lot. Calvin and I, we have a good buddy. He had a failed gym, but Def Leppard CrossFit, I would give out 5-day memberships to it when I finish jobs. Right. And then also I have another great friend, Chris Meganber. He owns Devil's Head Coffee. I'll often give out coffee that they've custom done here in the city. And I'm a big supporter of small and local business whenever I have the ability to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just relating to the COVID question, I think it's becoming more and more relevant as time goes by, and these measures are affecting small businesses. So I think it's on everyone's mind that we need to be supporting locally. We need to be supporting provincial, Canadian businesses where we can. So it's great to hear that in this case, I know construction is doing fairly well throughout all this. That's great to hear. What are your concerns for Calgary's future, if you have any?
I think that we have to, recruit these larger businesses, because our smaller businesses, like, they thrive off that. And that's what's going to generate them, right? Like, obviously oil and gas is an industry that's changing fast. I know that there's companies that are trying to reopen old wells to bring up, lithium and things like that for batteries, and they're extracting that out of water. Mm-hmm. And solar and environmental energies are a big thing now. And I think that in doing this, we have to be careful of misinformation, because you see a lot of pandering to, the environmental cause, right? And we don't want to be too harsh on big industry. We're a resource-based economy. Mm-hmm. So if it's our lumber, which, has quadrupled in price over the last year, as a result of the US booming, COVID slowing things down, plywood went from being, $9 a sheet to $25 a sheet kind of thing. It's, $50 a sheet now. 25 was last summer. So, you're seeing things go up 500%, which is great for us as long as we can utilize that, right? And do it in a sustainable way. So without the sun cores, our downtown core is not going to be there, and the small businesses are not going to be there. So I think it definitely is a big give and take on that for
Finding
sure.
A balance, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know that the municipal governments are definitely trying to bring in tech and bring in other types of business, but you've got to understand, like, if there's a better place for tech, they're not going to come to Calgary. You know, like if they can go to California and it's cheaper, better, and all the resources are there, then that's what they're going to do. So trying to grab a business or an industry that isn't suited for here isn't going to work. So you do still have to play to your strengths a bit, I think.
I actually wanted to ask you too, because we were talking a lot in the past, Simon, about some of your ideas for small businesses in Calgary. I know you had this very interesting idea to have even a local marketplace for local goods to promote within our city and, you know, maybe Alberta.
Yeah, great question. I think a big issue for small businesses is visibility, and getting them to market, getting them to being available to customers is a very hard thing to do. So, you know, my construction company is now 8 years old, but like the first 4 or 5 years, extremely hard finding appropriate business for what you want to do. And that's going to be a challenge for every new business. But if you see, you know, Kicking Horse Coffee, how did they get into being a part of Superstore's products, right? Like, how did they get into the inventory, right? But like, beyond that, like, they have a brand that's recognized, right? So maybe it's a gym, maybe it's a coffee company, maybe it's a construction company. But if you could have a platform within the city where, hey, you know what? I want to sign up. I want to be a part of this. And then everybody knows that you can go to a Calgary-based website that has Calgary-based companies, and you say, hey, you know what? I want my roof done. Going to look it up. There's 100 different companies. And I mean, you can do it. Maybe it's like Skip the Dishes. You can rate each food place, or you can rate each company that you use for service. If it's childcare, whatever industry that person is trying to do, if it's food, service, you know, house cleaning, and then that way you're able to see, like, maybe I want to go out and buy a pair of runners, but I don't want to go and get them from Sport Check. You know, I want that personalized service. I want the custom insoles. You know, I'm a triathlete, so maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Some kind of portal that will allow people to discern what, you know, what are local businesses and what are not.
A citywide portal, then.
Exactly, yeah. And then, so like, once you become established, you say, hey, you know what? I would like to subscribe to this. And, you know, maybe it's paid by the tax dollars. Maybe it's a very minimal fee, but like a nonprofit sort of website whereby, like, I can put my company up there, and you say, hey, you know, Keon Construction, what do? They do residential construction. You know, they're going to build my house. You know, there's a link to the webpage. I can go and see what their projects have been, their past projects, what their future projects look like. Or it's maybe I want to go to a certain type of boutique liquor store, or, you know, maybe I want to go find a cool little wine bar for a date night, you know. And you could look these things all up on a Calgary-based website, and then, hey, boom, you know, this is where I want to go shopping for my shoes, or my next, you know, road bike, or maybe it's snowboards, and I want a really good, you know, ski shop. You know, I don't want to go to Sports Check. I want to go to a Bonneville on Crowchild, or I want to go, you know.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's municipally advocated, I think.
Yeah, like these in specialty services,
powerful.
right? Like, you can go buy a pair of Under Armour shoes, or you can go and, like I said, go to a running store, or a triathlete bike store that specializes in that. Or maybe you're into downhill biking and you want to go and hit Bow Cycle, or, you know, or whatever other avenue, inline skating, whatever you're getting into, there's going to be a specialty shop. There's going to be a professional who knows all about it, right? Like, if I were to go into a swim store, I know, like, hey, you know, this is the kind of training suit I want. This is the kind of racing suit I want. But if you're getting into that and you're like, okay, where do I want to get a swim trunks at? Yeah. You know, they're going to take you to Sports Check, and you're going to get a pair of shorts, you know, and that's not very fast to swim in, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, that's great. The next question I had for you was, what would you like to see municipally and from City Hall, not provincially or federally, in order to help local businesses thrive? And I guess you've put forward a good proposal there. Is there anything else you would like to see?
Is there any way they can support you there? Or?
Yeah, I think the other thing is, workshops, and maybe they're out there, I'm not sure, but on how to develop your company, right? Like myself, I'm going from, where I've been on the tools a lot in these, these first 7-8 years of my company, but how do you go beyond that properly, right? Like getting the visibility so you have the business so you can create the infrastructure to support more and more business so that you have the ability to grow your business. And that's going to look different for, I know, every industry. Like there's going to be a million different ways to grow a business, but the infrastructure and the support system behind it, if there was an entrepreneur center where you could sit down for a fee or for free, I don't know, like a lot of business people like to support other business people and say, hey, like here's a mentor, here's their advice. Like you're going to need a program for quoting projects, you're going to need one for labor management, you're going to need one for inventory, whatever it is, and say, here is another business similar to yours. They've grown this much. This is how they've done it. Introduce them to the system, because the trial and error approach is very expensive. Like I've noticed that myself in different areas of my business as I try to grow it. If it's advertising on the radio, but it's $10,000 a month, but maybe that's better put into Google Ads so that when people search coffee, shoes.
So at a municipal level, could maybe the city of Calgary help you navigate situations like zoning and all the other and sort of the bureaucracy and getting your work through, like what do they call them? Permits. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, permits.
Like I mean, a lot of navigation to that too.
A lot of it I don't think is based on permits, right? Like you can go in and like it says, hey, to be a business, this is what you need. You open up your business. But that's not the same as what that business's structure looks like, right? So like the operation of a business, like if I go into a business that's doing the similar thing as mine, but maybe it's 20 people strong or 50 people strong, and I sit down in that office, like I want to see what they're doing, because that's where I would like to be in like 5-10 years, right? So if there was a facility in the city where you could go and say, maybe it's an entrepreneur center, maybe it's whatever it is, and say, hey, look, this is kind of what my business is. This is where I'd like to go with it. How do I do that? And they have people help you facilitate that. Calgary is a crazy place. Like if you go to Halifax, people aren't looking to be entrepreneurs, set up companies. That's where I grew up, was in Nova Scotia. And it was just a completely different feel when you come out here. People are looking to do the new thing, looking to, build their companies. They're looking to be successful. They're looking to hire people. They're very well educated. And this is a great, great city for that vibe and, that industry of self-promotion, right? Like a lot of other places, they're scared of that. They don't want to fail. They don't want to, but like Calgary goes after it, right? And I think right now, we've had a little bit of a setback with oil and gas and COVID, but they're going after tech. They're going after different industries, tourism. It's a beautiful city. I don't know of any other city who will have as many high-rise buildings as we do under 20 years old. There's always 7 or 8 cranes on the high-rise. So
outside of providing a center for supporting entrepreneurs, how else do you think the city of Calgary can support existing or budding entrepreneurs?
I think we need to look at policy a bit, and I think this happened in Edmonton, but I think like there's probably got to be a tax share agreement coming up. We see all these warehousing companies, Amazon or Sobeys, and they're shipping all their things from Rocky View County into Calgary. So they're using all of our infrastructure, but paying none of our tax to service us. So obviously that's north of Calgary. That's kind of the municipal, provincial sort of agreement they're going to have to look at, just to make sure that, like the small businesses don't want to be picking up the tax rates of these big businesses, putting their operation centers outside the city, but operating within the city. So
still using that infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would be something key to look at, is just the development corridors surrounding the city to make sure that we keep things, kind of fair to everybody. And I think surrounding policy, like these are only the few issues I know of. So I'm sure there's lots of other ones that should be maybe revisited, because I mean that mall up there and across Iron Mills and those warehouses, they're all relatively new. So I mean, this is an issue that's been popping up in probably the last 10 years kind of thing. So
Yeah.
but it definitely, I think it needs to be visited. And any other issues that are kind of similar, right? Try and keep the table balanced and fair to everybody. We don't want to chase away big business either. By no means am I an anti big business person. Like, I think the more Suncors, the more Mexans or whatever other large businesses we can attract here, the better for our city.
Mm-hmm. Are there any particular policies of Zane Novak's that resonate with you, specifically surrounding small businesses?
Yeah, I think he's on the right approach, like trying to help small businesses. Obviously, I mean, when it gets into policy making, he's not in yet, so it'd be interested to see exactly how he goes about that. I think he's right on the nose with trying to help these guys out and bring the business back into our city. I mean, downtown core of Calgary is beautiful. A lot of new buildings in there, lots of cool things to go see. If it's, the new library, it's, the Bow Building, the Telesky. I mean, those are pretty phenomenal buildings to go and take a look at, and all new. And East Village, right? Like, it's all new infrastructure. Very cool to go and take a look at. So I think, just getting people more amped up and back into the city with business and things, I think is a great approach to helping this city out. And that'll help alleviate tax issues and many other issues for small businesses that are looking to service everybody. I think that he might be missing the younger demographic in his approach, from what I've read and seen. It doesn't seem to appeal to people probably under the age of 35 or 30. He's very business oriented, and I think that he might have to broaden what he's trying to approach here with his campaign, which, I mean, we're very early in, so we'll see where that goes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Before we move on to our final question here, I actually want to ask you, I know you've always been very involved in the community since I've met you, and early on I remember you held a fundraising thing for the Big Brothers.
And I've been a little bit off on that lately, just because of owning two businesses and one not doing the greatest. So, my time was eaten up, but I would definitely like to get more involved again with that sort of thing. I think we're a reflection of our community, and our community is a reflection of us. So if you do good things in your community is going to go and do good things as well. So you look after each other, and it will look after you, right? So I believe very strongly in that, and I did a lot of volunteer work in my younger years, and I would like to get back to doing more of that as well.
So, relating to trying to get younger votes, how do you think we can spur interest in those younger voters, whether it's through community activities, downtown revitalization, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the approach should start at probably kids who are 18 years old. And I don't know if that looks like going into the high schools or universities, or how you enter that demographic. But I believe that, they're a huge part of our future. Obviously, they are the future. And we need to engage with them, make them aware, help them if they want to become entrepreneurs into becoming that, or maybe they want to be tech, or whatever that looks like. These people can enter the workforce and become a part of it and be engaged in it and see what they're looking for. I'm 36 years old. I'm 18 years away from what they're doing. So, I'm sure my desires for the city are going to be slightly different than theirs. So
I could speak to that a little bit too, because part of Zane's platform is to work on retaining a lot of the youth that are leaving. It's kind of a scary prospect, because for the first time ever, Calgary isn't a place where the youth want to stay anymore. People used to come, well, they still do, but it's for different reasons. The youth are starting to look at other cities, and by youth I mean ages 20 to 24, and so his platform, one of the big things is to empower a lot of these young people, because Calgary has a really, like you mentioned earlier, has a really strong entrepreneurial culture. And how can we engage them? How can we encourage them? How can we give them the structures to grow there?
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, I think, because Calgary is the land of possibility, and it is sitting on Canada's doorstep to the playground. I mean, the mountains
Yeah.
affords you the ability to do anything recreationally. And we have some world-class facilities here, be it the Oval, Canada Olympic Park, educational facilities via, Mount Royal or the UFC, and many other educational facilities. SAIT is world-class in what they teach. Maybe I should have mentioned this, but my business partner is a refugee from, I think it's Syria. He was bouncing around a few countries there. But anyways, he came here when he was 12. This past year, 2 years, let's go 2 years, he's discovered when he was actually born. And then he had the ability, he finally got his citizenship, and he finally had the ability to go back home to where he's from, where his family is. And he went back home, and he said it was a nice visit, but he was happier to be here than there. Yeah. And they have a decently well-off family back from where he is. Like they have land and they're well off, but he would still rather be here in Calgary. Like just the city is amazing. The resources, the recreational life, everything. It's the quality of life in Calgary is, I would say, second to none. So I think it still is the land of opportunity. It just needs to be put back out there and appeal to these people, and the diversity that we have here, right? We have a ton of diversity with opportunity, with people, with everything.
Mm-hmm. So when you're speaking of diversity, do you mind kind of expanding on that? We're talking about different kind of communities, different.
Yeah, I mean, Calgary is a super diverse place. We've been attracting people to this city since probably the 80s when oil and gas really crashed, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I mean, throughout the 90s, it was building. The 2000s, especially the early to mid 2000s, like this city was exploding, right? Yeah. So people from around the world, around the country have been gravitating here. I could be wrong, but I think in the 70s, Calgary's population was like 245,000, somewhere in there. I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. So we've quadrupled in size in, 40 years, 50 years now, I guess. So that in itself is pretty crazy. The infrastructure, the people we've brought here, and smart, intelligent, hardworking, ambitious people, right? Yeah. So that's still here. I think it just has to be put back out there and make sure that we're catering to what people want to do still, right? Like oil and gas. Well, our environmental sciences are as strong as our oil and gas sciences, right? We have some of the best technology in the world for doing environmental work.
100%, yeah.
Be it collecting selenium off mines or, doing safe oil and gas extractions, right? So.
And yeah, objectively, some of the more ethically sourced oil and gas is in Canada, is in Alberta compared to some other places in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think, we need to, again, speaking personally, I think we need to appreciate that more
and advocate for that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, our natural resources economy is probably the best in the world. Be it lumber, farming, oil and gas, mining. We're one of 3 spots in the world that make steel. That's what our coal mines are. Our coal mines are actually steel mines. Believe it or not, it's not for burning for energy. It's actually for steel. And that's a huge misbranding, I think, because mm-hmm. people look at Sparwood and Fernie, that whole valley, that could be, Canada's whole economy almost. It's crazy how much potential we have. And I think that it just needs to be, rebranded, and not in a way that we're trying to hide that, hey, this is coming out of coal, but like, the rain that runs off those mountains generates selenium. Well, they have world-class facilities for cleaning water and keeping selenium out of them so it doesn't kill our rivers. Right. These are technologies that we can go and share and build around the world for other environmental issues. So, maybe we need to focus on the environmental sciences and outsourcing a lot of our work in Alberta companies multinationally, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Okay, and we always like to end the episode with a question. Why do you believe in Calgary?
I think the whole conversation today is kind of pointed towards that. You know, I make a living here doing construction. It afforded me the ability to open another company, the MK Country Liquor. It's providing a good living for myself and my wife and soon to be kid, which I'm super excited about. And then after that, we've got all the recreational abilities that we want. I mean, I quite often go for trips in the winter, pre-COVID, and I love playing in the mountains. So I go biking and snowboarding and skiing and swimming and all those sorts of things. So Calgary is a great place to afford us all those luxuries in life.
Simon Kallal, thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, guys.